can prayer be prosecuted? That might seem unthinkable, but in some jurisdictions in the world, certain types of prayer or praying in certain places actually has been criminalized. Listen for the rest of this episode to learn more.
Will no one rid me of this meddlesome priest?
First, in my home state of Victoria, there is the Change or Suppression Conversion Practices Prohibition Act, passed in 2021, and this explicitly prohibits the use of prayer to suppress or change someone's sexual orientation or gender identity. Now, I believe that, pray the gay away is pastorally irresponsible and potentially harmful. So I concur up to that point that, some religious-based conversion or suppression practices should be banned. And I'm not alone in agreeing with that. Generally, the Catholics, Anglicans, Jews, Muslims, and many other religious groups were in favor of banning these harmful conversion-based practices because they're to the detriment of people, they affect their mental health. So there was very good will from the religious communities about this prohibition. The problem is suppression was defined incredibly broadly so as to encompass certain types of prayer, not just the, pray the gay away prayer, but even other prayers. Like if someone asks you to pray for them about their sexuality, if you're not 100% affirmative in everything, you could potentially face prosecution or a fine or be hauled before some sort of tribunal. In addition to that, I've got friends who are same-sex attracted and celibate, and that's the kind of life they live. That's the kind of life they advocate. But if they prayed about that, affirmed that as a model for other people to follow, they could potentially be prosecuted as well. And I've met many people who are, wrestling with these types of issues about their sexuality and their faith. What I normally tell them to do is to discern in the precincts of their own conscience how to love God, how to follow Jesus, how to take care of themselves, how to pursue a life of holiness and devotion. I tell all of my students to do that, irrespective of their sexuality. But here's the thing, a life of holiness can entail a suppression of one's sexual appetites or desires. So even praying that someone lives a life of holiness, if that means you've got to suppress some of your sexual desires, even that could potentially be prosecuted. Now, I know that sounds pretty bad, but actually it gets worse. If we move from Victoria to the United Kingdom, they are now prosecuting people for silent prayer in the vicinity of an abortion clinic. Now, I think this requires a little bit of give and take. A woman should not be harassed at by crowds, yelling slogans or holding signs as she's going into a clinic, any more than a woman should be harassed or verbally assaulted or abused if she's going into a church or into a school. Protecting people, whether religious or irreligious, from intimidation and harassment is a basic civil right, and that's true also for people with whom I disagree. But pro-life advocates in the United Kingdom have been arrested, prosecuted, convicted and fined for silently praying outside abortion clinics. If you live near a hospital, one of these exclusion zones, even organizing a pro-life meeting in your own home may be a criminal offense, or even wearing a t-shirt that says something like pro-life and proud could see you prosecuted or arrested. And in particular, in Scotland, the government is sending letters to various households telling them to report people who engage in pro-life behavior in certain areas. I mean, that sounds pretty bad. I mean, you can read more about this in a great article at the Free Press, and I direct you to read that to know more information about what's going on in the UK. Now, I know that gay conversion practices are harmful. Myself and many others think, yeah, they should be banned. Otherwise, yeah, a woman should be able to walk around and get her medical needs sorted out without, being intimidated or harassed. And we do have big debates across the world about, right to life and respecting women's autonomy. I kind of understand the points of contention in those debates, and I can understand where people who disagree with me, I can understand where they're coming from. But once you start criminalizing prayer, I think you've crossed a line. You're infringing on people's basic civil rights, on their religious freedom, their freedom of conscience, their freedom to, hold a certain perspective, freedom of belief. It sounds, almost Orwellian, but in the technical sense, I would say it amounts to what is called civic totalism, where a progressive state attempts to coerce and control people in their private and public lives. So, yeah, there is the danger of prayer being criminalized or being criminalized further in some jurisdictions, which is a threat to our liberal democracies.